Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide. The Los Angeles Rams. It doesn't get any better than this. Let's go Rams!
Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the LA Rams UK podcast, episode 109, The Return. I'm John. And joining me, as always, is my partner in crime, Andy. Andy, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Glad to be back talking about football. It finally feels like the season's just around the corner and it's good to go again.
It's been a long off season, but it's unbelievable that here we are at the end of August now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I say. You can just taste the football now.
Can taste it. Football season's finally here. And joining us this evening is... the name of this episode, The Return, is not just about the return of football, but it's the return of the Godfather. Tony, how are you doing, mate?
Not bad at all, thanks. It's in our preamble, I was going to ask you not to mention the Godfather or anything like that, because Chris used to do it every single week. But yes, it's good to be back and good to have a bit of a time in an evening to actually do this type of thing. But yeah, good to see you again.
It's good to have you back with us, Tony. I know you've been a busy man, but it's great to have you back with us. So, as Andy said, football season's here upon us, guys. We've got a lot to try and get through in this next hour, and we'll do our best. So, the last time you heard from us was the week prior to the Lions' playoff loss last season. We're not going to talk about playoff loss. So, we'll just in this episode, we're just going to whittle our way through what's been happening in the off-season. And the first thing, top of there, we have to talk about is the retirement of one Aaron Donald. In March, without warning, Aaron Donald decided that was him. He's done as a Ram, he's done as a player, and he announced his retirement. Guys, what was your initial thoughts on this? And I'll ask you, do you think he's actually retired?
My initial shock, that one? Yeah, my initial was like gutted, mate. Seriously gutted. It was like I couldn't believe he'd done it. You know, I thought we might get maybe another year, maybe two. You know, the team was looking good for potentially maybe going for another Super Bowl run with him if he stayed around. As for, I think he is done. Personally, I think that's it now. You know, he's been toying about it since we won the Super Bowl, and I think he's at that point now. It appears from what I've seen on like his social media and stuff, he's got a lot of other stuff going on business-wise. And I do think he's just, you know, that's it. He's had enough. Unfortunately, I'd love for him to come back. You know, never know if we maybe make the playoffs. We could see him maybe suit up for one last go, but that'd be ideal, but I just don't see it myself.
No, well, I mean, there's been talk in the last kind of week or so, and it's been big what? That's what it said it, like as what happened with Eric Weddle when we won the Super Bowl, coming off the bench, the couch and getting straight back in. I mean, he is capable of doing it. Whether or not this season goes well enough to do that, remains to be seen. But what was your thoughts on it, Tony? Let's be honest, how gutted were you?
I was pretty gutted, to be honest, just like every Rams fan, really. But I mean, I don't think it was that much of a surprise. I think we sort of thought he might retire just after the Super Bowl, and then that extra season, you know, it was always on the cards once he got his ring. But I'm the other side of Andy. I think there's a better than average chance that he will jump off the couch towards the end of the season or the early playoffs. And even if he doesn't get on the field, I think he'd just be so much of a presence in the dressing room and the sidelines. I think it could just provide that extra boost to either get us into the playoffs or to get us past that first round of the playoffs.
What about just, like you said, about his presence on the sidelines even? I mean, during the off-season, he has been, not necessarily training camp, but he has been there at Thousand Oaks. Just around. What about the prospect of him becoming a coach one day? There was rumours at one point, in fact, that USC were going to tout for him as a coach. Could you see Aaron Donald going to coach, or do you think he's got enough going on elsewhere that coaching is maybe not something for him at this stage?
And I mean, I think it's a little bit like Whitworth, to be honest. I think we always thought that Whitworth was going to be a coach, and that was part of the reason for bringing him in at his age into the squad. But I think it might be a couple of 3 years before Donald's ready for that.
Yeah, I think if anything, he's likely to go more college ranks first, and possibly, I would imagine, maybe. I mean, going back to Pitt as a defensive coordinator or something would be ideal. But as you say, he has been helping out. I believe during the off season, he had a training camp with Braden Fisk.
Yeah,
to give him a few pointers and hitting. So the fact that he's doing that, and he's still hanging around is good to hear. But we'll just have to wait and see. I think with him, I think as he said, though, he has got enough, fingers in the pie of various businesses and stuff to keep him going anyway.
Yep. In terms, we'll just say for now that that's him well and truly gone. Tony, I'll come to you first. Your favourite Aaron Donald memory?
Any sack on Russell Wilson.
There was a lot. That's a lot to pick from, though. I mean, I could push you to be more specific, but yeah, fair enough. Andy, what about yourself?
It'll always, I think, be the sack that got us the Super Bowl against Joe Burrow. I think that's the one that, is always going to stick in my memory, the one that, got us over the line and won us the chip, basically.
Yeah. That I'd probably say that for myself, but notable mentions, making Geno Smith shout, "Oh my God,"
Oh yeah.
Taking on the whole of the Cincinnati Bengals in a scrimmage during the off season, with helmets in his hands, which was famously memed into the scene from Game of Thrones, Battle of the Bastards, when Jon Snow's got the horde of the Boltons coming towards him, Aaron Donald with the helmets, with the Bengals coming at him. Like, the man was he still is, I guess. He's just larger than life personality, phenomenal athlete, phenomenal player, and there's that, who's going to be the next Aaron Donald, and it came out and said it himself, stop saying who's going to be the next me, let guys be the first them.
Yeah,
because I've had my time. I'm so grateful for what I've done in the league, what I've accomplished with the Rams, but let guys go out and be them. No one's going out to be me, they're going out to be them. So you've got to give a lot of respect for him. He's for all the kind of stature around him, and always a compliments. He's so down to earth and level headed. That you just call me this, you call me that. He's not going to deny how good he was, but he wants to give respect to other players out there. And like you said, guys, that he had that kind of mini camp with Fisk himself. So he, over the last few years, we've seen he really likes to invest a lot in the young guys and mentor them. And fingers crossed, we'll see him quite a few times in the sidelines this season.
Yeah, hopefully with any luck, he'll be there for a few games, helping out. But I say, get your tickets now for whatever year it is that he's first ever eligible for the Hall of Fame, because I think he's going straight in there.
It's without doubt, isn't it? We'll reserve comments that we have, and rightly so, on the Hall of Fame and the selection committee, and how these guys get in there when we've got our own players not getting in. But Aaron Donald, his ticket's already punched, his bust is already there, his jacket's waiting on him.
Yeah,
it's not, no one can deny him that place in Canton.
No, exactly.
So, life after Aaron Donald, the attention was towards the draft, and the Rams, for the first time in years, had a first round pick, which shockingly we didn't trade away, guys. Before we start rattling through the draft and who we actually picked, did you guys go in when we were going into the draft? Did you guys actually expect us to keep that first round pick, or did you expect us to trade away? Personally, I thought that pick's not going to happen. We'll trade away.
Yeah, no, I had a sneaky doubt we'd either trade back sort of the end of the first round and maybe grab an extra one, or just completely get out of it and potentially maybe a future first in the next year's draft or something. Maybe as a Stafford contingency. But I was quite shocked. I was like, all right, I'm sitting here because I watched the draft live. I was like, you know what? For the first time in years, like, there's a reason to watch day one of the draft. And I was just like, okay, I'm sitting here. If these guys trade back now, I'm going to be annoyed after staying up till stupid o'clock in the morning for it.
Yep. Tony, did you expect us to keep that first round pick, or in previous years, did you expect us to mortgage off the first round pick for players or future picks?
I think there's always the possibility with the front office to actually do something like that. And, I think with the front office, it's expect the unexpected. And, I don't think I'd have taken, I didn't take the risk of actually staying up like Andy did. What will be, will be. I think the last draft I watched was actually when Goff got picked. And everybody pretty much knew we was going to take one of the two quarterbacks. But it's quite unbelievable that was our last first round pick before this year.
Absolutely
crazy. Anything's possible with this front office.
Yeah,
I kind of stayed up because there was the rumors the Rams are going up for a player. Bowers or some. So I was like, we might get this pick over and done with quite early because Brock Bowers is expected to be top 10, top 6 or something. I was like, we might be done, by the time. But obviously, we never did. Either we couldn't make the trade work, or it was just press talk,
Yeah, we did make inquiries to move up, but obviously just didn't come to fruition. And then there was talk. I'm pretty sure there was rumours about us moving down into the kind of high 20s, if I remember it. I can't even remember who it was we were talking to, but they did. There was definitely talks about us moving about. So I watched the as well, just like yourself, Andy. And my wife was still up at the same time. I was going crazy that we'd actually made a pick, and she's like, "What's the big deal?" She's like, "We don't do this. We don't make this pick. We don't pick in this round. We trade this away." And obviously the first round pick, 19th pick overall, edge rusher Jared Verse out of Florida State, a position that we needed to draft in as well. So for me, it wasn't even just about a case that we'd picked in the first round. We actually picked a position that we needed to fill. Jared Verse being the first round pick for the Rams since Jared Goff. Same name, different guy, different position. What's your thoughts, guys, on how we picked there?
Yeah, I thought first round pick, perfect pick for us. He was one of them that was sort of on my radar that I was looking at, and all the mock drafts had him going a lot higher than we were picking. It was just lucky because of that massive run on offensive players. What was it? The first 15 picks were all offensive players. There was, he basically just fell perfectly into our lap. So I was very happy with that one.
And then with our second round pick, one of his teammates, defensive interior Braden Fisk, also from Florida State. Don't know if you saw any of the clips of this, Tony, when the pick was made. Fisk, they basically got Verse and Fisk together at the same time. Like, they couldn't believe that they were going to get to play each other. Like, it was just so touching that these guys have got like a brotherhood together. Do you think having two guys that played so closely together is going to have an immediate impact on our defense, or do you think it's one of those ones we'll have to kind of wait? It'll be a slow burner.
It's not going to hurt, is it? Let's be honest. They know how each other. They know how each other play. They know how they prefer to get involved. So I think it is a positive. It's got to be. My first thought was when we picked up Stedman Bale and Tavon Austin, which was supposed to be a tandem signing, which never quite worked for us. But this seems to be a little bit different. So yeah, I think it's very positive.
Yeah, I wasn't keen on this draft pick, if I'm being honest.
Oh, why not?
The amount of capital we gave up to be able to move up, and two, I'm actually worried he's not going to be able to play very well at the next level because he has got the shortest arm length of all defensive tackles in the NFL. So offensive linemen can get their hands on him, and he's going to struggle to get off them. He's not even going to be able to touch them, so he's going to have to, and
he's up against it.
Yeah, he's up against it. I'm not saying he can't get it together, but that is something that really worries me. Defensive tackles with short arms like that. don't tend to do very well because they can't shed, especially in the run game, they can't do things like shed off blocks to get tackles. So, yeah, and as I say, the draft capital we gave up for him, giving up next year's second rounder for him, it just felt, if we'd have waited, I felt he would have fell to us. I think it was a very impulsive thing to have done that we didn't need to do.
Yeah. I mean, and it's one of those ones like the kind of reporters in the press at the time were pegging him as that's your Aaron Donald replacement, as well, obviously because it's like for like position, like you said, the kind of arm length is kind of a weakness in him. But then in the day, the way that our team seems to scout players isn't, they don't seem to go off of measurements and statistics. They've got a whole different kind of like caliber of how they rate people. But as we moved into the third rounds, we took our one and only running back out of the draft, normally draft 2, I guess. Blake Corum out of Michigan, who a lot of people are kind of speaking highly of. Do you think he's going to give Kyren Williams a run for his money? Because I'm not saying he is, but quite a few people seem to think he will.
Yeah, I do. I think he's basically going to be. That draft pick to me feels like we've already said Kyren Williams isn't getting a second contract with us because it's just a perfect like for like replacement. So, for me that it was good pickup, good style, good runner. I think he'll do well for us.
And then we went back to the defence from there. Just rattle off the next few picks. Cameron Kitchens, Brennan Jackson, Tyler Davis, and then we drafted the man who's going to be our hopefully long-term replacement for Matt Gay, Joshua Carty. Tony, in the kicking game, like the last time we drafted a kicker was Sam Sloman, and he didn't do too well. Do you think that when considering we had some capital there to maybe go out and sign a kicker, do you think it was a smart move just to go with a rookie, or do you think we should have looked elsewhere at anyone else that was available at the time?
I don't know. Are kickers real players anymore? I don't know. I haven't got an opinion on this one, to be honest. It was a bit far down the list to be really on my radar. But it's an important position, and he's obviously somebody that they've looked at. So I don't know. Wish him all the best, and hope he actually does the job for us.
Yeah, personally, I think we did well getting that kicker. He's been pretty much automatic. He's got quite a good leg on him. Yeah, I know he missed one in pre-season, but he misses few and far between. I think he could potentially be a long-term replacement, and he's on a rookie contract, so he's not costing us much. So, that money can go elsewhere if needed for other players in free agency.
I mean, the thing is, like you're saying about missing a kick in pre-season, to be honest, a lot of kickers are missing kicks these days. Kicking isn't you're not, like, in years gone by, when your kicker came out on the field, 9 times out of 10 he was making the kick no matter what. Whereas these days, kickers, the accuracy isn't as high, and that could be down to a multitude of things, I guess. So it's one of those ones. Like for me, I don't read too much into he's missed a kick. As long as he doesn't keep missing kicks, that's the main thing. Especially when it's after what we were getting last year.
I think it was a point after that he missed, but again, I think the whole situation, the snap, everything was a little bit off. I think doesn't help, but he's kicked everything else throughout pre-season, and from what I've heard, from camp, I think at Thousand Oaks he kicked a 62-yarder straight down the middle. So that's the sort of what you want. He's
obviously got a leg about him anyway.
Yeah, the kid's got a leg, and just going back, for me, Brennan Jackson, I think is going to be one to watch out for. Maybe not this year as much. He'll be more rotational, but I could see him pushing the likes of Byron Young in year 2. He really looks quite tasty. So I know obviously Byron Young was a 3rd round pick, and he had a decent year last year, but I can see this Jackson kid pushing him potentially usurping his position at some point.
So after Carty, we took Jordan Whittington at Texas, wide receiver. Now, round about this kind of this point in the draft last year was when we took Puka Nacua, and not saying Whittington is up there, but the man has been making a bit of a name for himself in pre-season, guys, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. You know, he's very much in the Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua mold of wide receiver, and you know, we all know already Puka's been dealing with one or two little niggles during, you know, the off season and during camp. So
yeah,
could potentially be a nice little replacement to take his spot if he's not healthy to go, or you know, he needs a bit of, you know, a snap count, you know, at the early part of the season, just while he's getting over those injuries.
Tony, do you? Well, I mean, Whittington's obviously he's made the roster. Now, do you see him getting many snaps this year? Bearing in mind a couple of years ago we had Lance McCutcheon, who was absolutely phenomenal in pre-season, signed him to the main roster, and he pretty much didn't feature at all that whole season. Do you think it's going to be the same with Whittington, or can you see him kind of muscling his way into seeing some snaps?
It makes the wide receiver room look pretty strong, doesn't it? Given that a rookie's come in the pre-season and looked pretty good. But obviously we haven't played any starters during the pre-season. So it's had room to display what he can do. So I mean, I think he will get some snaps, but it might not be immediately, obviously. I think they'll play him in and actually look after him. But he looks like a good addition to the squad.
Yeah, certainly. And then just to wrap up the draft, we then took centre Bo Limmer, and then interior offensive lineman KT Leviston. On with those two guys being offensive linemen, on that topic, we obviously re-signed Kevin Dotson in the off-season, which we were all delighted about. There's, until a couple of injuries, until that, there's been quite a bit of talk about our offensive line looking strong. Obviously, we've got Steve Avila, who came in and was absolutely killed it last year in the offensive line. Do you guys feel that the team have made sufficient additions to strengthen the line, or do you still feel like there's any weaknesses there?
Yeah, you know, we signed Jonah Jackson, you know, as well. So, you know, to play one of the guard spots, and obviously he is going to move into centre. So I think we've got one of the biggest interior three on the offensive line. So it clearly tells us we're going to carry on from last year with the power running straight up the middle, you know, and just let it go. My concern, weakness-wise, is probably, as much as Jackson played decently last year, he just worries me still that, you know, he's been one of those players throughout his career. He's been a bit hot and then cold. So, and obviously he's suspended for the first 2 games for personal conduct. So, you know, if there's something going on in his life, that might sort of take over his head a little bit and he might not be in the game, you know. But again, we can't do anything with it now. We'll just have to ride with him this year and potentially draft maybe a tackle next year to replace him.
Yep. So that was the draft. That's the guys that we kind of brought in from the draft, and we didn't really do well. I suppose we didn't really do it this year because last year we only had something like 30 guys on the roster post draft, so we had to sign loads of undrafted free agents. In terms of additions, guys, like, is there anyone that you've seen that we've brought in outside of the draft that you feel like will make an impact this year? I'm just currently scrolling through the list of transactions we've made at the moment.
Possibly that linebacker Omar Spates. He looked pretty well in pre-season, and he's managed, you know, for an undrafted rookie to get on the squad. You know, he's not even on the practice squad. He's in the 53. So, you know, McVay and what have you have been talking pretty highly of him. You know, so maybe he can usurp, you know, one of our linebacker positions, because at the moment, Roseboom and Reed, it doesn't exactly look like a great linebacking combination.
Yeah. I'm going to come at you with this one, Tony, because I'm interested to know your thoughts about this. So one of the additions Bobsley made in the off-season was a certain chap who plays quarterback and has played quarterback for a couple of teams that we don't like, but then is suspended for weeks 1 and 2. You know who I'm talking about? What's your thoughts, Tony, on Jimmy G being a Ram?
I'm happy for him to sit on the bench for the full season. Thank you very much. And let's be honest, he's there as a backup. That's the only reason he's there. I don't know what the contract is like without looking it up. But I hope it's team friendly. It's not costing us too much, but I hope he doesn't get on the field for us.
Yeah. Andy, do you want to chime in here?
Yeah, much like Tony said, I don't want to see him in the uniform on the field if I can help it. But at the same time, we do know Stafford has a little bit of an injury history, so he's at least. Hey, do you know what? I'm gonna wash my mouth out with soap after I say these words. But he's at least a competent quarterback who could probably win us a few games if he had to come in at a push. And don't worry, the bleach is on standby for later.
Excellent, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. It's for me. I don't like that he's on the roster, but I agree with what you're saying, Andy. That at least there's a backup there that's competent. Like we saw Stetson Bennett in the preseason. I'm not convinced that he's a backup quarterback. To be honest, anyway. We talked last year about having like a better quarter backup for Stafford because obviously he's getting more banged up. We want a guy to come in. When we had the season before when it just all went to hell. We brought Baker Mayfield in and he did an absolute ton for us. At such short notice. And we said back then, imagine if our quarterback 2 was actually semi decent, that you could rely on them to step up. So
we had it last season. It was only one game, but it was Carson Wentz. He at least he won us a game and looked competent. All right, again it was 2s versus 2s, but he got us a win. That's what you need. So Stafford does maybe, or even if we're winning games by the end of the third quarter, we can say to Stafford, right, sit down, relax, you're done. We'll get the Jimmy in to just finish the game off. He's not going to be a John Wolford and throw the game away. He's going to at least get the offense running, and it's an offense style that he's also used to as well. But I will say, with Stetson Bennett, I know people, as the week went on, he started to look a little bit more comfortable. And we've got to remember the guy's just had a year out of football for, rehab reasons. Yeah. So he's going to look a bit rusty. But he did look more competent, as I say, as in each preseason game as it went on. And you look at him statistically versus a lot of the other backups around the league. Apart from that first game, he was about average, passing statistics with the rest of the backups that were playing. So, I think we do have to cut him a little bit of slack, I think, at the moment, and, give him the benefit of the doubt that maybe as the season goes on, he's getting the practice reps in and everything. He will potentially maybe next year be the backup that we need.
Well, who knows, I guess, yeah. Who knows? How are you feeling about Jimmy G starting for us then? I know, not starting for us. How do you feel like if Jimmy G has to start for us, do you think that Bennett could push him to take the spot off him, or do you think it's going to be a case of Garoppolo he'll be the go-to if Stafford goes down?
I think Garoppolo is the backup if he goes down. I think Jimmy G would have to play really badly, I think, for McVay to hand the keys to Bennett. But, as I say, as the season goes on, maybe in practices, Bennett can maybe start to outshine him. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't make the field. I hope Stafford has a great season. But he's got to be a competent backup, as you said, John. And, if he gets the opportunity to practice with with Bennett on a regular basis, that's only going to bring him along a little bit quicker, hopefully.
Another position just wanted to highlight is the tight end position, because obviously Tyler Higby's out injured. So with Higby is a bit of a loss for us. Do you feel like we're kind of weak at that position now, because Higby also can block and he can catch, so we're kind of reliant on guys that are like Hunter, the likes of Hunter Long, who barely like seen a snap.
No, but as horrible as this may sound, I'm actually kind of glad Higby's not going to start the year, because I think Colby Parkinson, if given the chance, is going to overtake him, and I don't think by the time Higby gets back, he'll be the number 2. I really have. I watched him at Seattle. I watched him in college. He was fantastic. The only problem for Parkinson was, he was always sat behind Noah Fant, so he didn't get, much of a chance at Seattle. But, we signed him to a fairly large, $11 million a year contract, which tells me McVay definitely has plans. You don't sign your backup tight end for that sort of cash. Like I say, I think by the time Higby comes back, Parkinson will have taken the number 1 spot off and won't look back, and Higby will be cut at the end of the year. If his contract's not up, he'll be cut to save the cap space, because I do think Parkinson's going to overtake him. You heard it here first, guys.
Well, we'll stick a pin on that one and we'll come back to that one, because that'll be quite interesting. Because, like, I think when we gave the Higby, he's kind of new deal, it was during last season, wasn't it, Andy? Because I vaguely remember us talking about it, and I think you actually basically pretty much what you said there, that like I don't understand why we're paying him the money now, because his production doesn't merit the contract he was moving on to as a result. No,
he's Higby to me is a league average. He's sort of maybe a top 15, top 16 tight end in the league. But I do think, like I say, Parkinson can easily overtake that, and by the end of this season, be in, on people's radars. A lot of analysts behind the scenes have said him coming into our offense is a perfect match for his skill set. So we shall see. But like I say, let's put it this way: I'm drafting him in my fantasy. I'm not confident in him.
Fair enough. So that's I guess that's kind of colour on guys coming. Guys that are going out, they've went out. Anyone in particular, Tony, that has left the Rams in the last year, you're disappointed?
I think this is something that Andy wanted to get off his chest, to be honest.
I know,
John.
but I wanted to make sure you got a chance to speak before me and you disappear for the next, like half hour. And Andy just rants.
I'm not going to be as bad now. Now we know him, so.
Andy's on a bit of a roll here. Let him have the field.
When you go, Andy.
Right, yeah. Given what I've heard over the last few days, my attitude towards it has calmed down. When I initially heard the Ernest Jones trade and we were going to get rid of him, I was kind of, as you probably both saw on our WhatsApp group, I was ready to kick off massively about it.
Just to interrupt you there, Andy, just to give context to everyone listening, Andy texted the WhatsApp group and was like, when are we podcasting? When we podcasting? Because I need to rant about this.
Yeah, I was pretty steaming when I heard it, but looking at what people have said now, especially, what Big Wit has come out with, apparently, the guy was unhealthy, he was underweight, he wasn't looking like himself. Maybe there was something there, but again, the trade annoys me because we've basically, like I said in the group, we've given him away for what, a 5th round pick, which is the equivalent of a box of Twinkies. You know what I mean? We could have got a lot more, especially, we could have just kept them for the year and said, well, tough, you're under contract, you stay in and got us compensate your 3rd round pick for the same year. So I just don't sometimes understand what this front office is doing. I really don't. For me, it would have been a case of, all right, mate, we're not going to give you a contract. We're not trading you. you play for the year. If you don't want to be here, fine. We'll just keep you on the squad. And then at the end of the year, we'll let you go for a 3rd round pick anyway. You know, that would have made more sense to me.
Tony, how do you feel about the loss of Ernest Jones as a player? Obviously, like Big Wits came out and there's something been going on in the background. Do you feel like he is a big loss to us? Or do you think it's one of the ones that he's not going to be that much a loss because obviously that there's stuff we don't know about that we're not going to find out about, let's be honest, because they like to keep their cards close to the chest with this sort of stuff.
They do like to keep the cards close to the chest, but I mean, I think he is going to be a loss. He's been a good player for us, but I unlike Andy's little mini rants, I think we've got to trust the process. You know, there was obviously something there that wasn't quite right, and I think Andy's probably right on we could have held out for a better compensation pick eventually, but would that have been worth hanging on to a player that we weren't happy with, and eventually that player wouldn't have been happy with the team and his treatment, and would that have affected the team and the dressing room? And you know, you're better off getting that out of the team and the club and moving on. And sometimes you've got to make these big decisions, and you know, time will tell whether it was a good decision or a bad decision.
I think the whole, like you said, Andy, that if we just held on to him and let him go at the end of the year, we could have got a 3rd round comp pick, and to come out with a 6. And you said like not even a box of Twinkies as well with it. Is we seem to be bad at what we get out of players, because like you go back to like when Jalen Ramsey left as well, and we were all absolute furious what we came out of that trade with. What's going on in the back office that they can't, play hardball with the negotiations? Because they could have said like no deal, for like a 6th rounder for a guy who is going to project as a compensatory pick at 3rd rounds. What did he need to do to actually properly negotiate? Do you think they're incapable of it?
I do wonder sometimes if the back office is just incapable, or they just don't. They're like, oh, well, you know what? We've drafted 6th round rookies. We seem to hit on 7 out of 10 of them that we pick. They turn into squad players. That's fine. We'll deal with it. And even like I said, going back to the Braden Fisk trade, we massively overpaid for what we moved up to. Every analyst was like, the Rams gave up how much for that?
Yeah,
to move up like 8 spots or something. And we've basically mortgaged half of next year's draft for it. We always seem to overpay when we want things and get underpaid when we're giving away things. And this team just doesn't seem to, like I say, whether it's something in the back office or, they genuinely, I'm not saying they genuinely wanted to dump him. We know for Ramsey and stuff, it was more of a salary dump. So teams have had to take on the salary. But, it just, some of the trades, as I say, just don't make sense. And it's worrying. It almost feels now as if the rest of the league go, oh, the Rams want to trade. All right, guys, let's go and fleece them. That's just how it feels now with us.
Yeah, but I think the other side of that, Andy, is that if other teams have that thought process, well, the Rams want to move up, they must have a very good reason for wanting to move up, so we're going to make them pay for it.
Yeah,
there is that, but it's just like I say, the Rams also need to play a little bit hardball, and unfortunately, sometimes in the draft you do have to just sit and go. And like I said, Fisk, I personally reckon he'd have been where we were picking anyway, so it's pointless as moving up. I didn't really see another team taking him. But
someone must have gave an indication to maybe just call it a bluff that they would have taken him.
Maybe,
because, like you said, for the back office, they're probably that gullible that they would have taken the bait.
Yeah, possibly. You know, I say we don't know what goes on back, but it is just kind of. It's probably the one blight on the whole. Not going to say blight on the whole organisation, but on the front office that we draft reasonably well, but our trades and stuff just leaves a lot to be desired, and it feels like we get so much more to help the team if these trades were just a little bit fairer and a little bit more balanced, shall we say?
Yeah, it's like football, soccer for our friends across the pond. Team spending like 50, 60 million pound a player who they then sell on for like 10 million. And they make a loss on them. Yeah, it's like akin to that happening. That people we can go out, we can spend the money we got whatever to bring in like good players, and then when we're going to move them on, we fleece ourselves. You know, we don't put up like, no, this player is worth X amount of picks, that he's worth this to us. No, but we'll give you nothing. Okay, we'll take a box of Twinkies then.
Yeah, you know, I can understand some of the trades, as I say, because there's just salary dumps, so you're basically having to.
You want them off.
You want them off the salary cap, and you're asking another team to take the salary cap. So, you know, it's basically, we'll give you the pick to cover for it. But we didn't have to do that with Jones. He was on a rookie contract. We could have just cut the guy. You know, we'd have saved just as much hassle just cutting him if that was the problem, and just whatever, you know. But like I say, everything I didn't understand as well. Everything seems so rosy. A few weeks ago, it was, Les Snead, McVeigh. We're about to sit down and get a contract sorted with him. So they wanted him. Why all of a sudden the massive change? You know, people saying, "Oh, we wanted 15 mil a year." I'm not being funny. He was a borderline top 10 linebacker in the league. That's what you're going to pay for someone like that. Yeah, and I do worry that sometimes the officers still got the Aaron Donald thing of, "Oh, we don't need good linebackers. We've got Aaron Donald." Well, we haven't anymore. So you're going to have to change your mindset and realise that we are going to have to invest in positions that in previously years we've been able to sort of neglect because we've had the Aaron Donald effect.
Yeah. It's a mystery. Hope, fingers crossed, they don't get rid of anyone else on the roster, like in the same kind of.
Well, I know Zach Evans has just been dumped off the practice squad.
Has he?
Yeah. Yeah, he's been waived even off the practice squad now.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh well.
That was what, a 4th, 5th round pick last year that's just been dumped?
I mean, it's bad if you're getting dumped off a practice squad, let alone a main roster. In terms of the roster as a whole, just general thoughts, guys. We'll start with the offense. Tony, how do you feel about our offense and where it's at now? Are you comfortable? Are you optimistic about how our offense could do this year?
Yes, I'm fairly optimistic. I'm fairly optimistic about this season, to be honest, John. I've been reading a bit of chat where everybody sort of a couple of months ago expected us to be quite run heavy. But with the performance of Whittington, I think everybody's a bit more optimistic about letting Stafford fly. So I think there's plenty to be positive about.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Andy? The offense. What are you feeling about it? And is there anyone that you're expecting to break out this year?
Not necessarily break out. I'm kind of hoping that Cook can get back to his form. You know, he's a bit off last year. You know, I think he came back for that injury a bit too soon. So hopefully, if he can have a good, obviously it appears to be, you know, camp without any injuries, that maybe if we can get him back to form, the combination of him, Nakua, and Kobe Parkinson, you know, can get this game going. But I do still feel, given the investments we've made in the offensive line, I think McVeigh is basically going to do what he did last year with Williams and Corum, of basically fair second down, we're going to smash you in the face, basically, and try and, you know, grind out 4 or 5 yards, you know, per snap, and basically just keep ourselves ahead of the chains. But yeah, my only worry is the offense is going to have to score a little bit more, but we'll come to that in a sec when we go to the defense.
Yeah, that was my next one. How do you think this defense is going to fare up this year? Especially with it being announced in the last 24 hours that Troy Reader is going to be our signal caller. This is the man who can't tackle, folks.
Oh, dear God. Yeah, my defense is the one thing that worries me. I do feel that, as much as we're optimistic about, second years for Kobe Turner, Byron Young, how much of what happened last year for them was, again, the Aaron Donald effect. He's eating up double teams, triple teams.
Yeah.
And, especially for Byron Young, he was very much on clean-up operation. We've seen guys with young skill sets who had similar seasons alongside Aaron Donald. They've left the team. They've not got Donald there anymore. And, they've all of a sudden looked particularly average at best. They've looked like number 3, number 4 sort of rushers rather than, So it does worry me that people are like, after what we saw from them, that I think there may be a little bit of a dip in production. But, if we can get Tre'Davious White healthy and he can have a good season because he's not been healthy for 2 years and, on the back end, Darius Williams can sort of get back to the form we had of him.
Yep.
I do think we're going to be a more balanced team defensively, where we're not relying on the front seven to get all the pass rush because our secondary is going to be, Derion Kendrick and Kobe Durant. I do feel with having better players at the back end, if they can stay healthy and if they can get back to, 2 years ago before his injuries, Tre'Davious White was a Pro Bowl player, was one of the top classes, one of the top corners in the league alongside, Jalen Ramsey. If he can have a healthy year, if he can get back to that sort of form, that is going to be excellent. That's going to help a lot with the secondary, locking players up so that the quarterback does have to hold that little bit longer, which then may allow the other guys to get in.
Yep. Tony, what's your thoughts on the defense?
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a sea change, isn't it? They're going to have to change a lot to compensate for the loss of Aaron Donald. But I think Andy's got a lot more in-depth knowledge on the players there, and it's a suck it and see at the moment. We don't know what it's going to look like. So we've had so long with Aaron Donald that has been our defense. Yes, we've brought in free agents, star players along the way, and it's been as much fun watching the defense as it has the offense. And this year is going to be a massive change for us. So hopefully everybody else can take a step up and sort of fill that gap for us. But I think Andy's covered a lot of the players there. That we do have quality players there. We've just got to take our mindset away from Aaron Donald.
I think for me, there's people looking at our defense and I think, the Rams have got no defense. Like you're just touching upon there, Tony, and also what you've said there, Andy. There's a decent amount of talent in that defense. If you take away the mindset of, like you're saying, guys, about thinking about a defense with Aaron Donald, if you take that away and you think about the defense, it's not that bad a defense, really.
Better than we had last year, even with Aaron
Donald. That, yeah. We might actually have a secondary this year. Who knows?
Yeah, we were this conversation last year, with all the rookies and everything. We were like, oh my God, this defense potentially.
It was a makeshift defense, yeah.
Yeah, we were like, this defense could be like the worst defense in the league historically ever. And they surprised us.
Yeah, well, the likes of Kobe Turner breaking through and Byron Young as well to a lesser extent. These guys are now being joined by other guys that came in, so you never know. Our defense could surprise a lot of teams this year. So I remain optimistic about the team as a whole this year. And, even in the preseason, we were 2-1 in the preseason, beat the Cowboys 13-12, beat the Tenants 13-19, just got edged out 17-15 to the Texans. The guys that aren't the starters, they're not that bad either. So it's still a work in progress, our roster. We're still rebuilding after winning the Super Bowl. But I feel like this transition phase that we fell into post Super Bowl win, we're starting to come out the other side now of it, and we're now starting to build. There's young talent there with it. We're now utilising our draft picks instead of trading them away. So we're building a younger team that we can pay for years and build upon. I mean, granted, in a few years' time, we've got to start paying these guys. That's when because it starts to become difficult. But for at least there's a window now there. There's definitely a window opportunity, and I don't know if you guys would agree, for us to, really go for broke, I guess, because we've got nothing to lose.
I think we've got 2 years where we could potentially go for it again. And then, if we can have a good solid foundation, Stafford ain't getting any younger. At some point, he's going to have to retire. If we've got a good solid foundation in, get a rookie quarterback in on his rookie quarterback deal again, like we did with Goff, and then we can start splashing a little bit of cash again on free agents, because we're not going to have to worry about a contract for 4 years. So, we do have the potential of, we can get a good core together, then get a few mercenaries, we can go for this again.
Yeah,
but I do potentially see maybe not this year, but if we look competent, Stafford's looking good, and we can keep the core of the team together, maybe next year I could see us potentially pushing for a Super Bowl again.
Ooh, great prediction there. And well, me, I remember the first time I came on this podcast, I said that we'd every chance of competing for the Super Bowl, and we won it that year. So in my eyes, there's no such thing as a bad prediction. But we'll, on the prediction kind of topic, we'll swing back to that next week, hopefully, when what we'll do, guys, is we'll run through the schedule and we'll kind of come up with our predictions for the season. But I'm conscious of time for us, because for us over here in the UK, it's late at night. I know Tony's got places to go. I've got an airport run to do. So unfortunately, guys, we'll need to kind of start wrapping up there. Anyways, so Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, to have you back on here again. We hope to see more of you this year.
Yeah, I was hoping we'd get to the schedule, because I've got 2 or 3 things that I hate about the schedule and love about the schedule. But yes, it's great to be back, and thanks for having us again.
Okay, and Andy, mate, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm glad your equipment still worked after sitting in a cupboard for the last 8 months.
Yeah, a few tech issues to start with, but we got there in the end. The old percussive maintenance still works well. Give it a whack and it'll be good to go.
Excellent, and we'll see you guys hopefully next week. We'll talk more Rams. But for now, guys, I've been John, and they've been Andy and Tony, and we'll catch you guys all next time on the LA Rams UK podcast. Cheers, folks, and good night.